Hi there, I'm Nancy Herring from Now We're Cooking. It's Tuesday, so it's time for tips, tricks, and treats. And today we're going to make a couple of versions. I'm going to call them energy balls or protein balls, whatever you want to call them. To me, they taste like cookie dough. They're delicious, but they're not. They're a little bit better for you than cookie dough is. So that's what we're going to make. Most of these recipes that you look up have oatmeal as a base. They might have bananas in them, they might have protein powder, they might have dates for sweetness. I didn't want to do any dates because they're great, but they really pack in some calories when you do those. So I'm more concerned about that than some people are, so that's okay. But I'm going to do a peanut butter banana version. What I have in my bowl are 2 bananas, and I have to show you, they're always talking about ripe bananas. Well, when my bananas get too ripe, I just stick them whole in the freezer. I don't cut them beforehand or anything. And I let them thaw, I cut the end, and just squeeze out the banana. So that's how I take care of old bananas. So there's 2 of them in this bowl. The other thing I need are 2.5 cups of oatmeal. And that's already measured out. It says 2 tablespoons of honey. I like maple syrup more than honey, and I'm really not necessarily measuring, so I'm saying that's 1 and that's 2, and that's where you can, honey, maple syrup, whatever you prefer, and 1/4 cup of peanut butter. And again, I'm just kind of not measuring. You could use any kind of nut butter that you like. If you're into I can't even think. There's almond butter, there's all of those things. Any of the flavors that you like would be just fine and dandy. And then cinnamon. That's it. So I put the cinnamon over here, a tablespoon of cinnamon. And again, you notice I'm really measuring carefully today. We're gonna stir this up and see if it combines, and if it doesn't, I may dump it in the food processor, or I may just get in there with my hands. Applesauce is another good binder for these kind of things. Pumpkin is another good one. And if you want to put protein powder in, if you're a protein powder user, I made some that had protein powder in it. It's a new thing to me, so I'm not as familiar with protein powder. But go ahead and put some in. What I want this to do is to bind well enough that I can scoop it into balls, because I'm going to need to refrigerate it. But to me, it's like eating oatmeal cookie dough, which is not a bad thing at all. If you'd like, you could put teeny little chocolate chips in it, and I think I'm gonna, because I have little teeny chocolate chips. So let me see if everything's sort of, see, I've just uncovered a little cache of unstirred peanut butter in there. I did them earlier in the food processor, and the oats, I think the oats got a little too fine. So I'm leaving them this way. The reason, and then you scoop it out and then you let it go in the refrigerator. And the reason for that is these are old-fashioned oats. They do need some time to help absorb some of the moisture from the banana and all. And if you want to add, heck, go to town, add anything. I think this would be absolutely delicious with Nutella, if you had Nutella on hand. So what you do when it's all, I love my cookie scoops. I have multiple sizes of cookie scoops, and depending on how big a ball you want. And I usually don't even make them into balls. I usually just scoop, but I am going to do a little bit of hand rolling. And you can make them as large or as small as you want, depending on who's eating them or how many you'd like. If you'd like to have more than 1, you might make them small. If you want to have 1, you could put them in little paper muffin cups, that kind of thing. But you just make them into balls, stick them in the fridge for a bit, and let them set. So that's a version. Oh, and I didn't put mini chocolate chips in them. That's okay. You could roll them in mini chocolate chips, or even better, because I have lots of dough, I want chocolate chips in it. And the reason to use the minis instead of the full size is because then you don't have a giant chunk of chocolate in your peanut butter ball. So mix it up a little bit more. And you can dive in with your hands and do it that way. And it's easy, and you don't need to have a stove, you don't need any of that. So that's kind of a fun thing. So some of these are gonna, and then I'm just gonna stick everything in the fridge. So I'm not gonna go ahead, I'm not gonna roll them all. I think you get the idea. And again, cookie scoop, your hands, size-wise, whatever you need to do. So let me rinse off this. And these recipes are so adaptable that the flavors that you like will work. So I'm going to put these over here and stick this group in the fridge. And now we're going to make one that is, when I read it, I thought, okay, I'm game for anything, and I like it. This one uses, are you ready for this? Black beans as the base. And you really need a food processor for this because you want the black beans so fine that people don't know what it is. So it's a can of black beans that have been rinsed and drained. And then I need cocoa powder and or protein powder. You could put chocolate protein powder, you could add protein powder with the cocoa powder. I'm using cocoa powder with no extra protein added to it. It calls for peanut butter and or coconut oil, and I prefer peanut butter. So same thing, I think it's 3 tablespoons, something like that. So nut butter or coconut oil. And they're not, I didn't think they were overtly peanut buttery, but peanut butter and chocolate is a great flavor combination in my book, so I didn't mind that at all. Okay, maple syrup, and I am going to do a little more measuring this time. 1/3 of a cup of maple syrup. I want to get all that deliciousness out. Okay. And then vanilla and a little bit of salt. And based on the ones we did earlier, I'm going to put a little bit of cinnamon. It doesn't call for it, but I think that's not a bad combination. And what you do is you just whirl this up until it's smooth. So I'm using the steel blade. You could do, I did it earlier in a small food processor. This one I'm doing in the big food processor. I'm having, there we go. Okay, it's gonna make a little sound. And I'm pulsing on, off, on, off. Boy, it smells so chocolatey. Oh man, that's so delish. But I still see, I can see a few little bits of bean, and I want it to be, I don't want people to know it's bean. You can try it in a blender, but a blender aerates more and doesn't get it quite as smooth. Okay, I think this seems a little more liquidy than I did earlier. So I'm debating about if I want to add something to it. That's the fun about these. You can change or adapt most any way you want. See, I can make balls with this, but I think, okay, we're gonna do something a little off the wall. I'm gonna put a little bit of oatmeal in here as a little bit of a binder. Not a lot. And again, I want to whirl it till it's almost indistinguishable. helps if you put the lid on the right way. Gives it a little more body. Yeah. And just to fool the eye, I have some almonds and I was going to roll them in almonds because the oatmeal didn't completely become smooth. I'm throwing in some almonds so then you won't know if you're getting a little bit of oatmeal or you're getting an almond. So now what do I do with this? Well, same concept, only these I did quite a bit smaller. I used a small, the smallest cookie scoop because I didn't want a giant, they refer to these as black bean chocolate truffles. So I wanted something more in the truffly world than the energy ball world. And you can, again, use your fingers or not. But it made, man, I made 24 or 36 of them with the ones I made earlier. So depending on the size that you prefer. So what, at this point, you could roll them immediately. If you liked coconut, roll them in coconut. You could roll them in the rest of those almonds. You can also pop them in the refrigerator. And later on, I'll show you what I did. You can dip them in chocolate. But they're not, you can make them a giant bite or a little bite. I would prefer just a little bite like that. And I have to lick my fingers to see how delicious this is. I like the nuts because it kind of makes you not know what you're getting. But truly, unless you knew it was a black bean in there, you might know it's not all sugar and butter, but you might not know what's in it. And everybody that tasted them said, those are good, what's in them? Because they knew I was doing something a little bit different. So let me show you the ones that I did earlier. So I made the peanut butter balls with baby chips. Texture, they're soft. And so you eat them now or you keep them in the refrigerator and pull them out one at a time. These are the black bean balls. And what I did was I melted some chocolate chips with a little bit of shortening. You can use coconut oil or shortening. Just did it in the microwave and I just put them in a small dish and I flipped them over and over and then with a toothpick I pulled them out. And then to make them look a little more festive, I melted some white chocolate in a baggie in the microwave also. And I cut the corner off and just did the drizzle across the top. When you melt chocolate in the microwave, do it for 30-second increments at a time because you can burn it sooner than it melts and then you'll be so disappointed with what you did. But I just wanted to play around with some of these things because sometimes I just want a little bite of something and these really did the trick for me. So whether you call them protein balls or energy balls or whatever you want, little bundles of deliciousness, they're very fun. I've got a couple of recipes that I'll post and play with them and add things. You know, you could put peppermint extract in these, you could put a little coffee in there, all kinds of flavors. So those are my ideas for this topic. I'm Nancy Herring from Now We're Cooking. We're open 11 to 4 Monday through Saturday. We're at the northeast corner of Paseo del Norte in Wyoming. We'd love to help you out with whatever your cooking needs are. And now the kids are back to school, you may have a whole new batch of cooking needs that you've got to take care of. So please come and see us. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye now.